Listen, this one is for y'all out there, all y'all boys out there trying to act like Diddy. Chasing the bag, chasing the money, power, and respect, all of that stuff. Hey, it's all good, but that ain't gonna get you where you're trying to go. So tap in today. All right, so today what I want to talk about is helping entrepreneurs navigate getting the bag. So my personal story is I was, always an entrepreneur. I pretty much, started selling candy when I was like in the seventh or eighth grade, and that turned into various businesses throughout my life, right? But one of the things that I always think about is I had a son when I was 22 years old. Shouldn't have been having a son, right? Wasn't ready to have a son, but when you do grown up things happen, right? So had my son, but I'm still chasing the bag, right? So I'm not really focused on being a father. I was the kind of father that, I go pick him up on the weekends that I have him, but hey, you got to come with me on whatever it is that I'm working on, whatever I'm doing. We're not going to the park to go hang out. We're chasing the bag, right? And so when I think about being 47 years old now and something that I regret, I don't have many regrets in life because I think I learned from pretty much every mistake I've ever made. But if I was to say I have an actual regret, it would be that I wasn't as good of a father as I should have been to my son. But, things happen for a reason, and we move forward and we learn from them. So that's why I'm giving you my 8 tips, especially for the fathers out there, because a lot of times, there's a lot of resources out there for women. I'm not saying there's none for men, but women tend to work together more. So the resources that they find, they share. Men, we don't really share anything, right? So we're trying to focus and do our own thing and doing it in silos, right? So number one I'll give you is define true wealth, because it's beyond dollars, okay? So it's not all about the Benjamins like your boy Diddy said, all right? It's got to be more to it. It's about peace, it's about purpose, and it's about legacy. So those are the things that I want you to focus on as you're chasing the bag. I remember when I was broke and I would hear people who were wealthy always say, money's not everything. I'm like, well, give it to me and let me figure out for myself if that's really the case, right? But when I started making real money and making good money, I realized that it wasn't actually about all about the money. Now, you need money. Don't get it twisted, because nobody's paying your bills. Nobody's coming to save you, right? So yes, you have to make money, but it's about those other things as well. And if you can do a fine job of weaving all those things together, you'll be better off for it. Number 2 is the role of faith in financial decision making. So I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian all of my life, but there were times where I was so focused on making money that my Christianity, my faith kind of took a back seat. I remember listening to Russell Simmons. This was probably, maybe 25 years ago. I was up in D.C., and at the time he was stretching out and doing some financial services. Remember, he had the Rush card. This is back when he had the Rush card. And if you know Russell, he's never said that he's a Christian or a Muslim or anything like that. He just says that he's spiritual. But one of the things he said that resonates with me even to this day is he said reciprocity in the earth. So the more you give, the more you receive. And so when I started kind of figuring out how that whole thing works, I was very able to and willing to give, right? So that reciprocity in the world is a real thing. So regardless if you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're none, denominational, whatever it is, there's certain rules in the world that actually work. And so if you tap into those rules of the world, you'll understand and you'll receive those blessings from the Most High, whatever you call it. Number 3, family as the foundation. Now, if you're solo right now, you're out there working, you're grinding, you focus on everything else, you don't really have a family behind you, then that's cool. But one thing that I always tell my young entrepreneurs, create the family that you want. What do I mean by that? So we all are born into a family, but sometimes it doesn't feel like a family. What I've done is I've gone out and found brothers that I work with or that I rock with. They're not blood, but we've become brothers. Dr. Latane Phillips, that's somebody that comes to mind right away. I met this guy like 2 or 3 years ago, and because of the grind and the hustle that he has and the grind and the hustle that I have, we linked up. We created a group called the Guardians. We brought other men and linked up with them, and we created this brotherhood that, again, we're not blood, but if you mess with him, you mess with me. And so family as a foundation doesn't mean just the people that you were actually born with the same blood type, but it could be the family that you create subsequently. All right, number 4, this is a good one, right? Every time people hear me talk, I talk about goal setting. So write this down. Hit pause, go get a pen, go get some paper. You need to write this one down. I call this my SMART goal, okay? So SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. All right. So anytime you create goals, and I'm telling you right now, I want you to set some goals, but make sure that they're SMART goals. Okay. And use that acronym to kind of develop them. But I want you to create SMART goals in all 3 areas. I want you to think about aligning your giving, your time, your family time, your wealth building. Like there has to be some kind of balance throughout all 3 of those things. You can't just focus on one because you leave something else over here to the side that's not being it's not being watered, right? So think about a garden. If you have watermelons over here and you got peaches over here and you got limes over here and you never go and water your lime trees, what's going to happen to them? They're going to shrivel up and die. And it's the same in our actual life. So setting those goals is important. Number 5, navigating conflicts and trade-offs. I was literally just having a conversation with somebody about conflicts, right? And navigating those conflicts. One of the things that we don't do a well enough job in our community is finding individuals who can actually sit between the argument or the disconnect between 2 brothers or 2 sisters and coming to a resolution that'll work for both of them. Now, we want to fight online and we want to call each other names and all of that kind of stuff. I've studied the Jewish community for many, many years. And one thing that really impressed me when I look at the way that they navigate some of these conflicts is they always have someone, an elder, that'll come in and sit down and have a conversation. Now, you have to agree with whatever the elder says it's going to be, because a lot of times we have, our story, the person has their story, and then the real story is somewhere in between. So having someone who can actually sit down and look at it, look between the lines, look through the transparency of everything that's happening and come up with a resolution, you have to be willing to live with that resolution. So we don't really have, in our culture, we don't really have any standard operating procedures. And that's one of the things that I hope that we can start to build. That's a conversation that I would love to have with, a group of us. Standard operating procedures, how we react, how we navigate when certain things happen in our culture. Because technically we have no real culture, right? We've allowed other people to define what's Black, what's Hispanic, what's hip hop, what's whatever, right? So we have to define our own culture. And one of the ways we can do it is through the SOP. Shout out to my man, 19 Keys, because I got that theory from him. That's something that he and I talked about when we spent some time over at TCU a couple of years ago. Shout out to 19 Keys. All right, so that leads me into giving back and creating legacy. So I wrote here, generosity multiplies, blessings multiply, both spiritually and financially, right? I'm challenging us to start thinking legacy. It wasn't until I was probably in my mid-30s that I started actually thinking about my legacy. I mean, when you grow up like I did, most of the OGs, they were like 20, 21 because everybody was getting murked out. The gangs were like super rampant. So if somebody made it to like 25 years old, you were like, yeah, OG, what tell me something, right? And these young people at the time, they didn't know anything about legacy. They're just trying to stay alive from day to day. But now when we start getting older, I had these conversations with some of the guys, we made it out, right? And we always start talking about legacy. Like, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? I started a nonprofit organization back in 2007 called the Reforming Academics Program. And so I went back to my old neighborhood. And so because the acronym was RAP, this is funny, right? So when we start putting our signs out and everything, so kids would come up and they're like, y'all teaching people how to rap? And we're like, yeah, come on in, bruh. But it wasn't that at all. We were teaching them financial literacy. We were talking about, military and college and all these different opportunities that existed for these young men to be able to get out of the neighborhood that they grew up in, right? And so, anyway, when I start thinking about legacy, that's part of the legacy that I want to leave behind. I want people to be able to say he loved God, he loved his family, and he loved his community. And so, as we are chasing the bag, as we're building, don't solely focus on what you can get from the community. Think about what you can give back. When I started one of my first businesses, when we made our first little like 30 or 40 grand, right? My cousin H and we went back to the old projects in our old neighborhood. And so back in the day, that's where, the D-boys used to go and give bicycles away and give turkeys away and all of that kind of stuff. So we went back and did it, but we did it as businessmen. So when the young cats would come up and they're like, "Oh man, what y'all do?" And we would explain to them, "Yeah, this is our business. We got a logistics company. We went to college. We went to the military. These are the things that we've done." So we were able to put some game into these young guys so that they didn't have to just think, if you're not a D-boy, you can't come back and give to your neighborhood. And I promise you, to this day, I still run into folks. They were super little then, so, of course, I didn't recognize them. But they like, "Yo, bro, I remember you came back to the projects. Y'all were giving away turkeys. Y'all were doing, Feed the Hood was the name of the event." You can actually Google it, and you'll see some of the video from back there, back in the day. Don't laugh at my teeth. That was before I had a little money and got my braces and stuff. So I was a little gap tooth back then. But yeah, seriously, like those are the things we got to think about, pouring back and giving back so the next generation. And don't expect anything from them. All right, just do it because that's what we're supposed to do. All right, number 8. Practical steps for balance. So I talked about this a little bit before, right? I talked about having some balance. So that means that I should be reaching up and reaching down at the same time. So what does that look like? A wise man once told me, you should always be pulling somebody up to the level that you're on, and you should always be reaching up to get pulled up to the next level. I think about John Hope Brown. That's somebody that I've had an opportunity to learn from for many, many years. And he's always talking about reaching down to help the next person up because that's what helps elevate you. And so, again, getting away from the whole idea of it's always got to be about us. Like I said, I started out talking about Diddy. Diddy had an opportunity to be like a real Black American hero. I mean, he had the money, he had the fame, he had the credibility. I mean, this dude has been through wars and all of that kind of stuff. But now all of a sudden, my man over here with 8,000 bottles of baby oil. Like, what are we doing, man? What are we doing out here? So I'm not, here to throw any dirt on another black man, but I'm just saying, bro, like we have to start thinking about the legacy, the balance, all of these things that I've talked about today. So blessings, fam. True wealth is found in harmony. And like I said, it's also found in the ability to be able to have true freedom. Freedom means I don't have to go punch somebody's clock. Freedom means I can help whoever I want to. I don't have my hands tied. And so those are the things that we really have to think about as entrepreneurs as we navigate family, finances, and faith, family, and finances. All right, y'all. Like, share, subscribe. Send me a DM if it's something that I said that resonated with you. Subscribe to the page. And so, listen, I want you to think and grow rich. And as we grow together. Peace.